Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Emily. I'm 25 years old, and today I've decided to open up about how I became involved in a delicate situation with my neighbor. I ask that you listen to the story all the way through before passing judgment, and if you can, share your thoughts on what I should do next. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of the details in this unfolding story. Every morning, I wake up to the soft glow of sunlight filtering through the curtains in my modest home in Maplewood, a quaint town known for its tall trees and warm atmosphere. The smell of freshly brewed coffee fills the kitchen as I prepare breakfast for my husband Kyle before heading off to my job as a teacher at the local elementary school. Life in Maplewood is calm and predictable, a place where everyone knows each other and gossip spreads as swiftly as the breeze rustling the trees. Kyle and I moved here 5 years ago, hoping for a quieter life. Kyle works as a mechanic, his hands constantly stained with grease as he repairs cars in the small workshop he inherited from his father. It's a job he enjoys, but it also consumes much of his time. Sometimes I feel like he's more connected to the engines he fixes than to me. Though the love between us is still there, it has been buried under the weight of daily responsibilities and the monotony of our routine. One morning, as I set the table for breakfast, I caught myself reflecting on how predictable my life had become. The comforting aroma of coffee mingled with the scent of lightly toasted bread. Yet my thoughts were elsewhere. Kyle entered the kitchen with his usual messy hair and drowsy expression, pulling me back to reality. "Morning, love," he mumbled, grabbing a slice of bread and biting into it. "Yes, everything's ready," I replied, forcing a smile to mask the sadness creeping into me. He didn't notice the shadow in my gaze, but I knew something was missing between us. Our spark felt extinguished, smothered by the demands of life. He kissed me quickly and left for work, his hurried departure leaving a pang of melancholy behind. After he left, I decided I needed to clear my head. I grabbed my bag, slipping my phone and a book inside, and set off on a walk around the neighborhood before heading to school. The sun shone brightly, and the blooming flowers added vibrant splashes of color to Maplewood's serene streets. Children played on sidewalks, and neighbors chatted animatedly. As I strolled, I noticed a new house being built next to ours. The walls were unfinished, and the rhythmic sound of a hammer filled the air. Curious, I approached the site and saw Travis, the new neighbor, hard at work. He was 36, tall, with a charming smile that lit up his face. His brown hair was tousled under the sun, and his snug shirt highlighted his toned physique. He seemed deeply focused on his work and didn't notice me until our eyes met. My heart raced as an involuntary smile spread across my face. "Hi," I said, offering a small wave. "You're doing a great job." "Thanks," he replied, his smile broadening. "I'm trying to make this house as inviting as possible." He stepped closer, the earthy scent of wood mingling with the floral fragrance of the gardens. Something about his tone immediately put me at ease. "Are you the neighbor?" Travis asked, with a curious glint in his eye. "Yes, I'm Emily," I answered, feeling slightly shy. "I live next door with my husband." "Nice to meet you, Emily." I'm Travis, he said, extending his hand. As I shook it, a spark of electricity ran through me. It was just a handshake, but its intensity left me momentarily stunned. If you ever need anything, I'm just next door, he added warmly. In that moment, something stirred inside me. It was a feeling I'd never experienced with another man, as though a door to a different world had opened. Yet I reminded myself of my reality. I was married. Still, our paths crossed often after that, whether he was working on the house or simply enjoying the outdoors. We exchanged small talk about life and interests, and the connection between us grew stronger. He was funny, intelligent, and had a way of making me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. One afternoon, I spotted Travis on his balcony carving wood. Unable to resist my curiosity, I approached him. "What are you working on?" I asked, stepping closer. "I'm making a sculpture," he explained, holding up a piece of wood. "I enjoy bringing life to things that seem lifeless." "Do you like art?" he asked. "A little," I admitted, feeling shy. I've always admired people who can create something from nothing. "If you're interested, I could show you how," he offered with a warm smile. Without thinking, I blurted, "I'd love to." In the days that followed, I found myself visiting his house frequently while Kyle was at work. Travis taught me how to carve wood, but truthfully, it wasn't the craft that drew me in. It was him. He made me feel alive again. The guilt crept in, but I couldn't ignore the way he looked at me or how I felt when I was with him. It was a welcome distraction from my otherwise monotonous life. One evening, after a long day, I baked a cake and decided to bring him a slice as a friendly gesture. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink as I approached his porch. He was there, wearing a tight shirt that showed off his muscles, and my heart raced at the sight of him. "Hi, Travis," I greeted nervously. "I made a cake and thought you might like some." "You're very kind," he replied, taking a plate with a warm smile. "Let's try it together." We sat on his porch, and as we shared the cake, the conversation flowed effortlessly. I found myself captivated by the light in his eyes as he spoke passionately about his love for art and how moving to Maplewood was his way of starting fresh. In that moment, the world around us seemed to vanish, leaving only the two of us. "You have an incredible energy," he said, his gaze locking onto mine. "You really love what you do, don't you?" His words struck a chord deep within me, stirring emotions I hadn't expected. I smiled, feeling a little self-conscious. "I do love teaching," I admitted, my voice softer. "But sometimes I feel like something is missing." The vulnerability in my confession brought an unexpected sense of relief. "Sometimes you have to explore new things, new experiences," he replied, his expression growing serious. "Don't be afraid to lose yourself a little." It felt as though he was peering into my soul, understanding thoughts I hadn't spoken aloud. I wanted to open up completely, to share everything that was on my mind, but the words stayed trapped inside me. Being so close to him made me feel both exhilarated and anxious. The line between curiosity and desire blurred as he leaned in closer, his warmth enveloping me. When our eyes met again, the intensity in the air was undeniable. Time seemed to freeze, and without thinking, I let go of my reservations. That moment would alter the course of my life forever. After that encounter on his balcony, my life in Maplewood began to change in ways I hadn't imagined. What had started as a simple friendship evolved into a connection filled with complicated, overwhelming emotions. I could no longer ignore the feelings that were blossoming within me. Travis was both captivating and enigmatic, with a way of looking at me that seemed to pierce through the surface and reach the depths of who I was. I found myself falling for the little things about him. His radiant smile, the way he described his art, and the light in his eyes when he lost himself in his passion. The afternoons I spent on his veranda, surrounded by the scent of freshly carved wood and sunlight filtering through the leaves, became the moments I looked forward to most. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues across the sky, I visited him again. He was focused on carving a piece of wood, sawdust scattered around him, and the earthy smell of his craft filled the air. "What are you working on today?" I asked, leaning closer to watch him. "It's a special project," he replied, glancing up with a smile that made my heart race. "I'm trying to capture the essence of freedom." He gestured expressively as he spoke. "For me, art is how I express what I feel." "That's beautiful, Travis," I said, admiring the passion behind his words. I've always been fascinated by people who can turn their emotions into something tangible. "What about you?" he asked, his deep gaze holding mine. "What makes your heart race?" The question caught me off guard, and for a moment, I was silent as the truth echoed in my mind. Lately, it felt like my life had become a monotonous cycle of obligations. With Kyle, the romance had faded, and I struggled to find joy in anything. "Sometimes it feels like I'm living someone else's life," I confessed, my voice betraying the depth of my inner conflict. "I need something new, something that makes me feel alive again." As he moved a little closer, I could feel the electricity in the air between us. Travis had this uncanny ability to make me forget the world around us, as though we existed in a separate reality. His compassionate gaze met mine, and for a fleeting moment, all thoughts of betrayal dissolved. It was just the two of us, lost in a conversation that seemed to defy the constraints of reality. "Everyone needs a spark from time to time," he said, his voice steady and intent. "Sometimes that means stepping onto a new path, even if it's risky." His words resonated deeply, stirring a longing I couldn't deny. I knew I was walking a dangerous line by getting close to him, but the promise of feeling alive again was irresistible. I yearned to understand what freedom felt like, not just through art, but in every part of my life. Yet the guilt weighed heavily on me. I loved Kyle, and the last thing I wanted was to hurt him, but the undeniable chemistry between Travis and me only intensified each day, and I knew I couldn't keep ignoring it. Weeks passed, and the connection between us grew stronger. We began meeting in more private places, away from the watchful eyes of our neighbors. With every secret meeting, The wall between us weakened, and the desire became harder to resist. One evening, we decided to meet at a secluded park, far from our homes. The tall trees created a natural canopy above us, and the gentle sound of a stream added to the peaceful eyes of our neighbors. The moonlight bathed everything in a soft, magical glow, making the moment feel otherworldly. We sat on the bench, and the air around us seemed charged with tension and emotion. "You know this can't last forever, right?" Travis said, his tone serious as his eyes met mine. I knew he was right, but the idea of leaving everything behind terrified me. "I know," I replied hesitantly, my voice wavering. "But I can't control how I feel. You make me feel alive, Travis. It's like I'm discovering parts of myself that I didn't even know were there." He leaned closer, his intense gaze locking with mine as my heart began to race. The warmth of his body so near sent a wave of desire through me, every fiber of my being responding to the connection between us. "Emily, I feel it too," he admitted, his voice low and filled with emotion. "But we have to be cautious. What we're doing is dangerous." "I know," I mumbled, guilt rising within me. "But it feels like life has handed me this chance, and I can't let it slip away." Without warning, he reached out and took my hand, the touch sending a shock wave through me. The world around us seemed to fade, leaving only the two of us in that moment. The tension between us reached a breaking point, and before I could think, I leaned in and kissed him. It was a soft kiss, restrained but filled with suppressed passion. As we pulled apart, reality started to set in. My mind swirled with adrenaline, a mix of pleasure and fear coursing through me. "This can't happen again, Emily," Travis said, his voice tight with tension. But I already knew the truth. The desire I felt for him had taken root, and I couldn't deny it. "I can't promise that," I admitted, my voice carrying a blend of defiance and vulnerability. The days that followed felt like a whirlwind. My longing for Travis only grew stronger with each encounter. Every time I saw him, the world seemed brighter, more vibrant, full of possibility. Yet, guilt clung to me like a shadow, and the divide between my life with Kyle and the passion I shared with Travis became increasingly unbearable. One evening, while Kyle sat in the living room watching TV, I found myself alone in our bedroom, my thoughts heavy with conflict. I glanced out the window and saw Travis's house glowing softly in the night. The temptation to go to him was overwhelming. The quiet night and the full moon casting its silver light over the town. I hesitated before picking up my phone and typing a message. "Can I come over? I need you." His reply came quickly. "Yes, the door's always open for you." My heart pounded as adrenaline surged through me. I knew the risk I was taking, but the need to be with him was overpowering. As soon as Kyle went to bed, I slipped silently out of the house and headed toward Travis's. The cool night air heightened my sense of anticipation and anxiety. Each step toward his house felt like an embrace of freedom and escape from the constraints of my life. When I reached his house, the door was slightly ajar. My heart raced as he appeared in the doorway, whispering, "Emily," before pulling me inside. The soft lighting of the house created an intimate, electric atmosphere. His touch ignited something in me, making my heart soar. I knew in that moment I was about to surrender completely to him. We kissed again, but this time the passion was unrestrained, dizzying in its intensity. It felt as though the world around us had vanished, leaving only the overwhelming pull of desire, the adrenaline, the passion, the connection. It all fused together in a wave that swept me away. I was aware of the line I was crossing, one that could never be uncrossed. But I didn't care. In that moment, all that mattered was how he made me feel, and Travis was the answer to everything I had been missing. It all fused together in the style of my imagination. After the kiss, he guided me to the sofa, where we spent those fleeting hours together, bonded in a way that felt both exhilarating and irreversible. The weeks that followed were like a fast-moving current, pulling me deeper into an ocean of emotions that I couldn't escape. Every meeting with Travis felt more daring than the last, but the risk only made it more addictive. Life in Maplewood, with its routine and obligations, had always seemed so dull. But Travis had stormed into my world like a hurricane, throwing everything into chaos. I still vividly remembered the first time I stepped into his house. The earthy scent of freshly cut wood and the soft rustling of leaves outside made the space feel warm and inviting. Travis had been working on a sculpture, his tools scattered around as evidence of his dedication. In that moment, I felt like I could finally breathe, free from the constraints of my daily life. But as our relationship deepened, so did the guilt. Kyle, my husband, remained blissfully unaware. He was the same caring and attentive man, always concerned about my well-being. Meanwhile, I became increasingly adept at hiding my secrets. A quick message here, an unexpected errand there. All meticulously planned to avoid suspicion. One evening, after a tiring day at work, I came home to find Kyle on the sofa watching a movie. He greeted me with a smile and invited me to sit beside him. The normalcy of the moment enveloped me. But inside, I was at war with myself. I was in love with my own idea. It flit. "How was your day?" Kyle asked, his eyes full of warmth. "It was good, just exhausting," I answered, trying to sound casual, though my thoughts were elsewhere, on Travis and what we might do later that night. Kyle smiled understandingly, but I couldn't shake the sense that something lingered in the air, a shadow of what he couldn't see. As he talked about his day, I wondered if he could sense the divide growing in my heart. Anxiety clawed at my chest as I considered what would happen if he ever found out. Later that evening, I excused myself and went to the bedroom. My mind, unable to settle, turned back to Travis. Acting on impulse, I grabbed my phone and typed a message. "Are you free tonight? We're meeting at 11 p.m. The response came quickly. "Yes, come." The next few moments felt surreal. When I arrived at Travis's house, the room was bathed in soft light, and the scent of wood and oil filled the air. He was working on a new sculpture, his hands skillfully shaping what would become a stunning piece of art. When he noticed me, His face lit up with a smile that seemed to dissolve the tension of the day. "I've been waiting for you," he said, stepping closer, the charged energy between us almost overwhelming. "So have I admitted, my heart pounding as he moved nearer. Desire coursed through me, making my body come alive. That evening was a whirlwind of laughter, deep conversations, and eventually complete surrender. There was no room left for guilt as we became entirely consumed by one another. Every touch and kiss made the world around us vanish. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt truly alive, as though I had been reborn in his arms. Days turned into weeks, and our secret meetings became an essential part of my life. Hidden encounters at his house, whispered words in the park, and fleeting touches when no one was watching. These moments were my escape. I was aware I was living in a fragile illusion, but it was a beautiful one, filled with everything I craved. However, with each meeting, guilt crept in deeper. Sometimes, as I looked at Travis, I questioned if what I was risking was truly worth it. The certainty I once had began to waver, but the passion burned brightly, refusing to fade. One evening, as we sat in his house, illuminated by the soft glow of a lamp, I watched him work. His focus and dedication were captivating, and his features, etched with determination, made him look like a piece of art himself. "Travis, what if this ends?" I asked hesitantly, my voice tinged with vulnerability. I had avoided asking, but I needed to hear his thoughts. He stopped what he was doing and turned to me, his eyes a mix of emotions. "I don't want to think about that, Emily," he said, his tone firm yet gentle. "What we have is special, and I don't want it to end." "But Kyle," I said, the wave of guilt crashing over me. "He doesn't deserve this." "No one does," Travis replied, his honesty hitting me like a blow. "But you're the only one who can decide what you want." His words left me torn between two lives, one safe and predictable, the other brimming with passion and freedom. The choice before me felt impossible, and I didn't know if I had the courage to make it. Over the next few days, I was caught in a relentless cycle of anguish and desire. Every moment with Travis was filled with emotion, yet the thought of Kyle loomed over me, a constant reminder of the risk I was taking. I knew I had to confront my reality, but I wasn't ready to let go of the connection I had with Travis. One evening, while I was at home, a message from Kyle interrupted my thoughts. It was unexpected, asking if we could talk. My stomach dropped, and nervousness washed over me. His tone seemed calm, but carried an underlying weight that made me uneasy. When he called me into the room, silence enveloped us. Kyle sat in a chair, his hands clasped together, and his serious gaze bore into me. "Emily, I've felt that something's different between us," he began, his voice trembling. "You've been distant." What could I say? How could I possibly justify what I was doing? "I've just been busy with work," I said weakly, trying to deflect. But the excuse felt small in the face of the truth I was hiding. "I understand," he replied, his voice steady. "But we need to be honest with each other." His sincerity made my guilt even harder to bear. It was as though he could sense something was amiss. The weight of my guilt pressed down on me, and the thought of losing everything Kyle and I had built together terrified me. "I love you," he said, his voice filled with hope, "and I want us to get through this together." The room seemed to spin around me. I couldn't keep lying, but the fear of losing everything left me paralyzed. "I love you too," I said softly, forcing the words out. "You don't need to worry. Everything is fine." At that moment, the reality of my situation became clear. I needed to face the truth, but the idea of choosing between Travis and Kyle overwhelmed me. It felt like my entire life was at stake, and the pressure of it all only increased. Later that night, as I left the house, I couldn't ignore the pull Travis had over me. The desire for him was magnetic, drawing me closer. Every moment spent in his world of passion and secrets felt like an escape, but echoes of what I was leaving behind haunted me. When I reached Travis's house, the intensity of the moment seemed to heighten with every passing second. He greeted me with a smile that lit up the room, and for an instant, everything felt perfect. Yet, doubt still lingered in my heart. "You look troubled," he said, taking my hand gently. "What's wrong?" "I'm torn," I admitted, feeling the weight of my confession. "Kyle knows something is different." Travis's expression darkened, his gaze piercing through me. "Emily, you have to make a choice," he said firmly. "We can't keep doing this without knowing if it's real or just an escape." His words echoed in my mind, forcing me to confront my own heart. The battle within me raged, but I knew one thing. I had to be honest with myself about what I truly wanted. What Travis was offering me was a kind of passion I had never felt before, while Kyle symbolized safety and stability. "I don't know if I'm ready to choose," I said, my voice trembling. "What if now isn't the right time?" He asked gently, his tone soft but firm. "Just remember, you deserve to be happy. You shouldn't stay tied to something that no longer brings you joy." As we talked, I started to realize how trapped I was in a cycle of fear and doubt. I craved the freedom and passion Travis awakened in me, but the weight of my responsibility and loyalty to Kyle held me back. That night, after hours of deep conversation and introspection, an idea began to take shape in my mind. I needed to face this situation honestly, to be truthful with Kyle, while trying not to destroy the life we had built together. Perhaps there was a way forward that wouldn't hurt anyone. As the night went on, and the connection between Travis and me grew more intense, I knew I was teetering on the edge of a choice that would alter my life forever. Love wasn't supposed to be a game, but what I was going through felt like an emotional labyrinth. With one last look into Travis's eyes, it became clear to me the future was in my hands. Whatever decision I made, I would have to live with the consequences. And so the dilemma unfolded. The night eventually ended, but the internal conflict raged on. I had to confront my emotions, determine what I truly wanted, and find a path to genuine happiness. Whether that meant staying with Kyle or choosing Travis, the road ahead was uncertain, but the power to shape my destiny was mine alone. Even though life felt like a risky gamble, I was ready to embrace it, no matter the outcomes. What do you think? Should I tell my husband the whole truth? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos.